was the singing. These people really can't sing.
The vocals were on point.
The vocals were on point. There was dance moves. There was real, like the costumes. I mean, I was sold. I like kept turning to my friend throughout, just like with this, we had to wear masks, but I like still had this huge smile on my face. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And at the end, I had a standing ovation. I was like, this was good.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Camille, and this is Enneagram for the Culture, where two dope Black therapists discuss how therapy, Blackness, and the Enneagram come together.
I love it.
Yes.
Love it here.
It's a good space to be.
So we're on our... Have we been saying the episodes as we've been going along?
I don't know, but...
We're on our 8th one.
We are. And we're doing our 8th episode, but about Enneagram 4s today. Yeah. But we're trucking along, Kim.
I know. I get excited each time. It's time to do this.
It is.
I believe.
Yes.
It kind of has a surreal feeling.
Yeah, it is fun. It's fun to get to hang out with you. It's fun to get to talk about this. I love the way that we that our minds turn and get excited about each episode and what it kind of brings up for us and all the things. So it's cool to get to do this and laugh about silly things.
Yeah, it is. So make us laugh. How did the Enneagram show up for you this week?
Am I supposed to be the one that makes us laugh?
You feel pressure?
Yeah, you put it on me. Come on, what do they say?
You said we were gonna laugh.
Don't pigeonhole me in a 7 box of making.
Okay. All right. You're right.
But I will. Right. I will tell you a funny story. So the way that the Enneagram showed up for me was a couple of weeks ago when we did our recording, and I was telling you that I was bummed that I was missing out on something with my friends, and that I wasn't going to be able to go to something, and I was really sad. Well, the thing that we were going to, that I was going to get to go to, I was going to miss out on drinks before, but what I was going to go to was this little community theater musical. Our friend from church was acting and singing in this little musical. And this is community theater. I didn't have high expectations, which is my bad. I am very sorry for that. I just thought we were just going to watch a cute little ditty. And I love musicals. I really do. I just think they're the best. So I was like, yeah, let's go support him. Kim, within 2 minutes of this musical starting, I was 1,000% in.
You were all the way there.
All the way there. Within 2 minutes.
Did you say 2 minutes?
Immediately. Wow. This was...
What was it? What got you?
It was the singing. These people really can't sing. The
vocals were on point.
The vocals were on point. There was dance moves. There was real, the costumes. I mean, I was sold. I kept turning to my friend throughout, just with this, we had to wear masks, but I still had this huge smile on my face. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And at the end, I had a standing ovation. I was like, this was good. First of all, again, anybody listening that does community theater, hats off to you. I went in with very low expectations and I was blown away. These artists are phenomenal. It was amazing to watch. But here's where this Enneagram showed up for me. Well, that I was super excited. But this...
Oh, I thought we were... Okay. Oh.
More. Of course, afterwards, we stayed after to say congratulations to our friend and tell him how great he did. And I had a million questions. I bombarded. I mean, how long did you practice? What was it like practicing? How did it feel to be in it? Who was your friend in the cast? What did you learn from them? What kind of jobs does everybody have? What's your next musical you're going to do? Which he's going to try out for The Color Purple. And this time it was his first time in. And so he was just like you were dying laughing. He was just a background character, just kind of singing and part of the ensemble. And so for Color Purple, he really wants to get a bigger part. And I was like, we need to practice. Like, we really need to work on the monologue and the singing, because he deserves to be a shining star in that musical.
Right.
Because it's The Color Purple. And I'm here for it. And then the next day we saw him at church. Still had more questions. So what's the director like? How much time did he put into it? I heard that there was a music track in the background. So you have to really stay on top of that. Like, I wanted to know all of the information about this. I mean,
did you go home and think about it?
Did I go home and think about it, Kim? I told everybody I knew that they needed to go to.
No, I just meant that night, because you said you came back to church the next day with more questions.
Yes, I think I am a really big user of my notes app in my phone.
Of course.
I think everybody is. My main reason as a 7, again, there's so many thoughts, I have to write them down. I probably had a note of questions to ask him the next day when I saw him at church.
Yeah.
Okay. I was singing the songs. I told everybody to buy tickets. They did. They went the next weekend. They loved it, of course. Yeah, all in. Loved it. I would say this is me telling everybody to look into your community theater and to go and support that art form, because I was very impressed and excited.
I'm having a lot of thoughts. I think
you're speechless.
No, well, I'm really thinking about girlfriends.
Okay.
I'm just really getting.
I know. Yeah. Well, we have to tell people about Girlfriends. So Kim obviously loves Girlfriends, watched Girlfriends like a normal human being.
And so you should be excited right now, right? Because there's been a they've redone this. Yeah.
But I didn't Sex and the City. I didn't grow up watching Girlfriends. Right. I'm going to go ahead and confess that. And I know all of you are shocked right now, but I didn't. And so Kim was the one that was like, you need to watch Girlfriends, because I grew up and watched Sex and the City, because that's the life I led. And so I know all of Sex and the City and all the things. And Kim knows all of Girlfriends and all the things with Girlfriends. I do. So she made me watch some of the episodes. So I have a working knowledge of Girlfriends, so I don't look like a complete idiot in social circles, but I do not know it inside and out like you.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I've come to accept that about myself.
I was just feeling, and I think that was why this is pre-Enneagram.
Yes.
That was why I was like, you got to watch the show, because there are moments where you just really remind me so much of Joan.
You said that.
About holidays and parties and Camille, let me tell you, Camille is she's here for a theme. She's here for a theme. And that is so Joan. So those thoughts were running through my head as I was listening to you.
Yes, this is all true. So if I'm like a Joan, then who are you?
Okay. So the truth is, I probably got some of the drive of Tony. And I'm struggling saying that, because, Tony, we love Tony. Tony's so funny. The show was not the same without her, but Tony, she was also, she had her issues. She was very, very, very superficial. I wonder if Tony may have been a 3.
It's sad when like a character that you resonate with is the one that, annoys everybody, or is it the best? You're like, that's me. There I am.
I think, a lot of people, they had their feelings about Joan too, because Joan had a moment, or a few moments. But I think I'm trying to look. I feel like somebody previously typed Girlfriends. I'm pretty sure Tony may have been But I don't really, I see, you know what? We're going to go with, I see myself in elements of all of those beautiful Black women represented on that show. That's what we're going to go with.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Thank you.
But I
slot on out of that.
That's just going to keep it as easygoing as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my Enneagram show up for the week, was being all in for the musical. I guess that's very Joan-like. I'm going to take that as a compliment, because I think it is. And yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Somebody else on the gram has Joan typed as a 1 and Tony as an 8. So
Joan as a 1 and Tony as 8. We've talked about this before. We don't totally love like typing everybody, but we all have our guesses. We're human and it's fine to guess. Do you like feel like that's a fair guess, the 1 and the 8? You see it?
Do I feel like it's a fair guess? I think that's fair. I think I would definitely probably see. Yeah, I think I go more with 3 for Tony than 8. And if we're going with 1 for Joan, I'm gonna say she's got a pretty strong 2 wing. I could see Joan being a 2 though, or 7.
Okay. That's the thing with like pop culture or like celebrities, that I feel like it's easier to sort of like put people in like pockets of numbers. Like you're kind of like, okay, we know that they're not this, but they could be this, or this. Mm-hmm. So I feel like whenever you see those typing things on, especially on Instagram, I kind of take them with a grain of salt because we don't know them, but it's sort of like, I'll say like, yeah, that's a fair idea. I could put that in the pocket of possibilities.
Yeah. Gingerly. I don't know why that word just came up with me just now, but I feel like it fits in. I kind of like that word.
Gingerly.
Yes.
Well,
gingerly.
All right. Mm-hmm. So thank you for laughing along my 1000% all in for Young Frankenstein with the Raleigh Community Theater. Shout out.
Stand up.
Bravo. I still am thinking about
Standing ovation. She's standing up right now, clapping.
I could not stand up fast enough when it was this time for the applause. Like I was like up, and I think I had like a coat, and then you always have your playbill in your lap. And so you
were ready, huh?
And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to like fumble around to be able to stand up. And I was so sad. Here's what made me sad is because we were all in our masks, which we need to be, and all those things. And again, shout out to the community theater for really having some great rules and to make us feel safe. But I was sad because since we were masked, the stars couldn't see our smiles and our enthusiasm. And so I really tried to give it more.
To really make sure they fit. They had to feel it. You had to make
I was like trying to like lean in my seat. Yeah. I was trying to like really make sure that my eyes were like smiling. I was
smizing. Yeah.
I wanted to give it back to them. And that's what they say on stage. These performers, they say they really feed off of the energy of the audience. And I wanted to give it back to them because they were really blessing me with their talent.
Have you ever done any theater?
So I'm not great in front of a crowd, honestly. Oh, I get nervous.
Yeah.
I get nervous in front of.
I bet you'd be great. I bet you. I feel you. Cause I do too. I do too. I definitely do. But
I think I would like to be part of the like team, like part of the like either the costumes or the set or like the front staff people that are like doing the management and like making sure that the seats are getting filled. But I can't be up there. That is a gift. And I do not have that gift. I mean, the talent. This is a little cheesy, and we're probably going to. I always say this. I see God in musicals and art forms and like music and dance and all those things. I just think it is a wonder that people can sing and dance and show like beauty in that way. I guess that's very 7 of me too. Like I will cry of like, I'll be moved to tears with how beautiful a musical is because it's just so amazing.
Yeah, you definitely sound like a 7. You sound kind of like, I'm sure some 4s are kind of feeling you right now though too. Just having that appreciation for one, I think this is something that we for sure have in common, like an appreciation for art, creativity, and especially, I love me some music. I'm all about some vocals. So, where you're, this is a safe space, you're in good company. But I think fours, just have that appreciation for things that are amazing and beautiful. And
I became best friends with one of my best friends because we had to go to an African dance performance at school in college. And at the end of it, she looked over at me and tears were falling down my face because I was so moved by the colors and the music and the movement. And I just thought it was amazing. And she was like, I like this girl. I like this girl because I was so impressed. And that's how I was even at Young Frankenstein. I was like, these people are so talented. Yes. And you're right. That is very, very 7 to be like that, to see beauty in that way. And then obviously, very 4 like to just see the beauty around. So that's true. Thank you for making that connection.
Sure. And good for you and good for your friend. And again, shout out. You said this was who? Raleigh, the Raleigh what?
I think it was the Raleigh Community Theater. I want to make sure because, I would hate to be repping the wrong community theater.
We'll clean it up later.
I'll make sure that that's the right one.
Okay. So I could talk about how the Enneagram showed up for me. It's not anywhere near as fun. But I think this is probably some of my 3 stuff too. So, when people ask about hobbies, and I feel like as adults, that question started to take on a different meaning, so like children, adolescents, it's kind of like, hey, what do you like to do for fun? But as adults, it's kind of like, people are essentially asking you, what do you do with your life outside of your work?
Yeah.
So it's always been a question I've kind of struggled with. But I realized that things that have something to do with being productive
are your hobbies.
Yeah.
So what's your latest?
That's the joke.
What's your latest productive hobby, Kim? Please
no. So I've been into okay. So I used to actually follow like different blogs, like technology blogs, just to be aware of like the newest. Yeah. So I haven't done that in a while. But I also used to just really get very excited about going into the App Store and just seeing some of the top. I just realized how incredibly, just how this sounds saying it out loud.
All your gadgets.
Just going into the App Store on your phone and just looking at all the top productivity apps. And it just really, I just get really excited about that. So you mentioned Notes app earlier, if you're open to some recommendations as far as others to check out. Yeah.
What are your favorites, Kim? Please.
Okay, sure. So there's Notion. I like Notion. Pretty much as a space to just capture everything. So like I'm looking at this other screen and looking at my notes. All of the notes I have about pretty much anything related to the Enneagram are in here, and it's
all
structured and organized. Yeah.
Okay.
That's also how I kind of keep up with social media stuff and topics and ideas and share it with my team. So there's that. Then there's an app called Agenda.
Okay.
Which I personally love because it connects with your calendar. And so you can go, which I have like calendar recommendation as well if you want this. But you can go into the Agenda and create notes or entries like within your calendar events.
This is nice.
When we have our podcast recordings on my calendar, as I'm thinking about things that I know I'm going to want to talk about, I can go in there and type them in. And then I just found a new one. It's called Craft.
Okay.
Which I like more than Agenda and Notion. And then here we have a predicament.
Why?
Because what do I do? Right? What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, Camille. I'm going to have all these apps on my phone.
You're going to have all of them for different things.
I'll figure it out. Yeah. That's actually where I am today, is figuring out how, because I like craft so much. Like, how can I, what am I going to, how's it going to work in my whole?
I would like to go back again. Last episode, we talked about threes, and I said, you need a 3 on your team. Like, if you are on a board or a committee or a church, like volunteer or something, you need a 3, because folks, did you just hear this? Kim has all of the best ways to be the most productive and efficient and organized running the world, getting ready to do it.
But the part that's like, so, and we're chuckling, and I'm not like, no BS. Before, like, kind of talking about it, I really didn't like, I don't really, to learn about threes and reading, they're so high achieving, they're very driven, they're very productive. Like, those things haven't lined up for me.
If folks could see my face, like, I have my mouth is open the same way that your mouth was open when I was talking about the musical. My mouth is open at like how, this is why we both love the Enneagram, because it is fascinating that you can talk, and you could probably talk about a whole hour about all these apps and which ones are the best, where just like I could talk a whole hour about the musical and how amazing it was. And it's amazing that, like, something that we wouldn't even realize is so like, no, that's unique to you. And you're just like, I didn't even put that together. It's like, no, that's very 3-like to have such an amazing, like curiosity and curation of your tasks and to be productive. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. It is. It's something, you said something about, I think maybe a friend mentioned to you that threes can keep a list of to-dos in their head. And I realized that a whole lot more since that recording, that's so the case. And this is why, I've got so many apps to put on, because there's a lot that we're keeping up with and a lot to be done, and it's got to get done.
The way that the Enneagram helps others is, right, I gave the listeners a shout out for community theater, and I encouraged everybody to go and see the beauty. Kim gave a shout out for a couple of apps that we can all, I hope you took notes on those. We'll probably link those apps in the show notes so that people can go back and download Craft and Notion and Agenda. So thank you, Kim, for sharing your wisdom. And I'm gonna thank myself for sharing my wisdom about community theater. So,
as you should. And
that's it, folks. That's
yes. Yes. No, really, you should check out Craft, because you could change like the colors of. You can't do that in some of the others that I mentioned. So you, Camille, you should, for your notes, for your theater questions, check out Craft.
I'm going to look into it, because I just use the notes app, and it is a little bit
boring. Yeah.
It's a little bit messy sometimes. It's not as organized and streamlined as it could be. So I'm going to look into it. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Enneagram showing up strong for us this week.
Boy, I tell you, I'm tired.
Pull up an app to help you.
Let's talk about fours.
Yes. And I think, when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about, how the Enneagram showed up for us, I think that both of our topics too were like very unique. And when we think about fours, they're so unique and like niche, like the word niche or niche, however you say it, comes up a lot for fours. And I think that both of us were even like kind of showed some cards on what we have that's niche. And so we're excited to jump into our very like individualistic, unique friends who are Enneagram 4s.
So just a quick overview about 4s. 4s, Camille has already mentioned, are known as the individualist, or sometimes known as the romantic or the idealist. 4s live primarily in their emotions. So 4s, we're rounding out the feelings triad here. And so deep down, 4s have a hidden, idealized self, or a vision of the person they passionately really desire to become. And this idealized self is creative, socially adept, universally desired. And so fours can tend to measure themselves against this idealized version of themselves and constantly feel like they come up short.
So yeah, I liked that sentence, measure themselves against the idealized version of themselves.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Fours can tend to feel that they are defective or flawed, that no one will really love them. And so they can strive to become this idealized version of themselves that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the core motivations for fours, the core fear for fours is being seen as inadequate, actually being emotionally cut off,
Mm-hmm.
being plain, mundane, defective, flawed, or insignificant. Or desire for fours is to be seen as unique, special, and finding their authentic self. Their core weakness is envy, and that looks like fours feeling like going back to this notion that there's flawed, or that they are flawed, or that there's something wrong with them or missing in them. So they can have a tendency to kind of naturally desire or want qualities that they see in other people.
Mm.
And then the core longing for fours is to know that you are seen and loved for exactly who you are, special and unique.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. With all of that, I think that there's also like we'll talk about this later, but like a push and pull with relationships. And that because of all the things that you just talked about of wanting to be seen as unique and special, but then also the other side of that of feeling inadequate. And so that can show up in relationships because that's a hard balance to strike. And so that becomes difficult.
So the stress pad or the arrows, excuse me. So fours can take on some of the average to unhealthy characteristics of type 2, and they can move to type 1 in growth. And so what that looks like is for fours to move toward type 2, they can become defensive when their feelings are hurt, by withdrawing or removing their attention and affection. So again, Camilla's mentioned this kind of push-pull that can be experienced in relationships with fours. That can be what that looks like or how that feels. They can become over-involved and clingy to win affection. They can discuss the current condition of their relationship with others so that they'll see their need for them. They can become possessive and constantly want to be close and secure in their relationships, and use flattery to gain attention from others when feeling empty or lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And fours moving to type 1 can look like fours becoming more emotionally balanced, objective, and principled, embracing mundane tasks as opportunities to be a good steward and to be responsible and organized, become focused, disciplined, and grounded, become more productive and focus on what's right, and complete what needs to be done before moving on to other interests.
So finding that balance with their logical side, it sounds like is how they can use their arrows. And then the way that they can use their wings, so they sit in between the 3 and the 5. And so when they lean into their 3 wing, they can become more pragmatic and less emotional. And when they can lean into their 5 wing, they can become more objective and balanced. So again, really trying to even out the emotional side that they have such a strong tie to. When they lean again back into that 3 side, they can prioritize tasks over feelings, and they can focus on their work and their goals. And that will help them take their attention away from all of the emotions that sometimes they can sort of dwell in. Um, they can also, with their the 3 side, instead of sort of going into all of the emotional places that 4s can sometimes go down, when they lean into their 3 side, they can sort of dial that down and focus more on like that to-do list that we kind of talked about. And again, getting stuff done, and being more action oriented. And then on the 5 side, when a 4 leans into their 5 wing, they can, when they feel like they're getting overwhelmed by emotions, leaning into their 5 side can help them consciously step away from that and become more balanced, and calm. They can start to analyze their feelings to sort of make sense of their feelings, which is what 5s are really great at analytical stuff. So leaning into that analytical space and being able to gather information from their feelings, so that they can learn what's actually important to them, and, using the 5's ability to kind of detach sometimes. So step away and not over identify with their feelings would be what 4s can do when they lean into their 5 space. So being able to really practice moving from your heart to your head, to become more objective about what's happening and putting your feelings in context, would be what would be helpful for 4s to do by leaning on their 5 wing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 4s are feelers.
They're big feelers. Yeah. We talked about, the triad, the heart triad. We talked about when we were talking about 2s, we talked about eyes out, and really being able to look outwardly to answer some of the questions that they have as a 2. And for 4s, it's the opposite. They're looking in. So they're looking eyes in, of how to answer the questions that they have. So they're really into their feelings. They're really into their emotional minds, to be able to answer, am I loved? Am I lovable? Am I worthy? They're answering that by their own feeling space.
Yeah. 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 So it creates that introspection, that 4s are capable of. I mean, it creates this capacity for emotional depth that is just like something amazing.
It is.
It really is. It's something, it's really amazing.
Yeah.
And it can be tough for 4s to see it that way. So again, going back to this triad, this feelings triad, and all of the types in this triad sharing that struggle with shame. Most of the 4s that I interact with, or again, just, my own awareness of my 4 energy, is to be able to view that capacity for emotional depth as a gift and as a strength and as a good thing. Because there can be a tendency to view it as something else that 4s feel is wrong with them. So, but it's amazing. And, us being clinicians and therapists, I mean, we kind of do feelings. I'm sure that has, at least for me, something to do with my fascination and appreciation for 4's capacity to be comfortable with deep emotions.
Yeah. That sentence, comfortable with deep emotions. When I think about my own story and my own experiences, when I was going through a breakup, and it was my first big breakup, and I was devastated and feeling all the feelings, I will forever be thankful to my 4 friend, who completely held that the best. Like I had amazing friends. I had amazing community around me. I will not knock anybody else. But that 4 friend really could sit with what I was feeling and the depth of my sadness during that time, in a way that nobody else could really touch. She just could hold it. And honestly, and that friend, what was interesting is that friend is not one of my closest friends, and she's not one of my best friends. But the fact that a friend that was a little bit outside my inner circle could jump in that close, and hold that deeply, I'm forever thankful for the way that she held it and then because fours are so beautiful in the way that they're with sadness, she could put words to it. And she could put, like, these words that would just like break your heart, but she got it. Like, she knew what I was talking about and feeling in a way that, because she knows it, she knows that sadness and she allows it in her own life. But then, and we'll talk about this later, the beauty of that, because she can, she's a wonderful, she's an author, she's an artist, like has these beautiful gifts that is just really, really neat. So thank you to the fours out there that hold sadness for so many of us so well.
Yeah. Beautiful said.
Yeah. Hey, so a part of our hope is to really connect with you guys. So we want to know what you're getting from this and what you want to learn more about on this podcast.
You can connect with Camille on Instagram at camille.logan.lcmhc.
And you can find Kim on Instagram at KReeseLCSW.
And you can follow us both on Instagram at Enneagram for the Culture. We've dropped the links in the show notes, so check those out too. And while you're there, go ahead and bless us with a rating and a review. Subscribe so you can be notified when our new episodes drop weekly, and share this with someone you know. We'll see you around.
So yeah, they're big feelers. They're big feelers.
Yeah. So we this is funny. I think we should just go ahead and say this. We were trying to come up with the funny anecdotes about this type, right? And it was a little bit hard because everything we were coming up with, we were like, this isn't that funny. So we're going to do our best. One thing that I shared with Camille is I feel like I've seen a lot of comparisons or correlations with fours and the whole vibe of fours to Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. You think about Eeyore, I mean, he was just this blessed, the beautiful soul who just, was just always just had this kind of melancholy, down presentation emotionally. And so sometimes fours can really connect with that whole vibe, that energy. And again, be comfortable with it. Like maybe a little insecure as far as how other people may view their comfort with it. But for the most part, fours feel right at home when we're talking about feeling kind of blue or down or melancholy. Fours don't have to, aren't necessarily the types of people that always feel like they have to be happy or upbeat or energetic. They're comfortable in those emotions that many of us tend to not be so comfortable in. So Eeyore, just being very deep feelers, very big feelers, deep emotional people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that part of that, again, to loop it back up, is that it brings the uniqueness to them. It brings the individualistic part of what they're striving for, is to be able to be seen as individuals and unique. And so, and then having that envy piece of something is missing kind of creates that Eeyore vibe that they sometimes have. And so they do have to be careful, again, which we talked about with the wings and the arrows, of really being able to strike a balance with that, because we don't want to get stuck there. The other funny stuff about fours is they have unique, again, we keep using the word unique. So they have this unique aesthetic vibe. And the thing with fours is they will have a moment, they will have it's fall and it's cozy and I've got my Christmas, my mug, and I've got my little mittens, and they really lean into, again, part of the creative part of them. They really lean into a vibe and a whole aesthetic. It's which is, I think, is funny and cool. But it can be a little bit, it can feel a little bit on brand sometimes when you have a four in your life where they're really going to really think, I think I saw a meme once about fours. It's the leaves are falling and they're thinking of all these images and experiences, and they're really just vibing out at things. Like, and so that's a unique thing about them. And then the other thing is they have their own individual brand and aesthetic. They don't beat to everybody else's drum. They beat to their own drum. So they're going to, in their fashion and in their music tastes and in their decor, they want to be unique and individuals. And so if, the joke is sort of that if their playlist is going to be songs that you've never heard of, they're not going to have, the top 40 hits, because that's not unique enough. Mm-hmm. And we need that, because sometimes we do need the deep cuts of the album. And they're going to have, a reason why they connect to that song.
I was going to say, not only that, they'll probably have some really, dope, interpretation or perspective about that playlist.
Yeah.
Fours are deep, man. You talk about, the leaves falling. I mean, fours, they're in there, they're very, very, very deep. Something else that came up for me was Judy. Did you watch Doug?
Yeah.
Growing up?
Yeah.
So like, I feel like Judy funny, Doug's sister, like she was so deep, and everything was, nothing was just it. There was always something more.
Really, that you just said what I've been trying to say. Nothing was. It's not just it. It's not just a Christmas tree. It's not just the leaves falling. There is a whole existential
deeper meaning. Yeah.
This thing. That is exactly it. That is exactly it. And that kind of leads into the romanticism of fours. Again, one of their titles is the romantic. And so they have these, visions and aesthetics and vibes and this romantic desire. And so even when I think about romance and the romantics, I think about that friend again that held so much space for my broken heart. But she loves big. And so when I even think about her story, she got married really quick, right? She met and fell in love and married her husband quick. I do not remember the exact timeline, but it was fast. And it was because she felt, the connection and and it was a beautiful love story. He was across the country and, it was all this stuff. And they have a beautiful marriage. But, the romantic, they're big romantics.
Yeah.
She also loves, I said she was an author. She writes romance stuff. Like she is, she really loves that.
It's beautiful. Of course it would be. What else would it be? We're talking about fours. That fours are just, they're all about kind of like finding the beauty in everything, even perhaps especially the things that a lot of us not trying to touch, right? Because it's too deep, or it's too dark, or it's too sad, or it's too heavy, or it's too whatever. Fours are, they have this gift and ability to find the beauty in anything.
Yes. What a gift. So then the misconceptions around fours, or the things that we have to watch as like people that walk alongside fours, and the things that they have to watch as being a four, is that they're not their feelings, because they can sort of over-identify, like we're talking about, because they can over-identify with their feelings, because they're so attached to their feelings and the meanings and the existential thoughts and all of those things, that they can sort of get consumed by that and become their feelings a little bit. And so for them to watch that, and then for us as friends and family of fours to not just make them be their feelings, like helping them kind of separate that they're not just that. They do have thoughts, and they are in their bodies, and there's more to them than just feelings.
Yeah, good point. Really, really important for fours. Like we're talking, a four can feel like they are sad. Like a sad person, when they're not a sad person, but they're experiencing that emotion. But fours can literally feel like, no, it's not just like I'm feeling sad, like I am sad. So really, really good point. Fours, so this misconception that fours are challenging in their relationships. I think what makes that a misconception is relationships are challenging. And we are all challenging in our challenging relationships because relationships are challenging and we're human. So so that part. But fours do long to be connected. They really do. And fours can tend to, they're not careful, kind of wrap their identity and sense of worth and value around how they perceive their connections are. And so when fours can feel like there's a threat to that, be it that the folks that they're in a relationship with don't see them, in all of their depth and have an appreciation for their authenticity, like that could be perceived as a lack of connection. And so fours, as with fives and nines, are parts of the withdrawal triad. So they can pull out. And so to be in relationship with a four, when that's the case, it can feel like they're hot and cold. So it's helpful to understand what's really happening, and more than likely that four is perceiving that there's a threat to connection. Again, that's so important to them. And so kind of with that, this idea that fours are never satisfied in relationships, that's not true. It's just, it requires fours to experience satisfaction in relationships. Again, they have to be connected with people who understand how important connection is to them and who can really validate that for fours, and for fours to be connected with people who do see them for all of their depth and gifts, and who will pour that into fours, really validate that for them, like we said.
Yes. Yeah. So like all the numbers, right? We kind of can get into the caricatures or the misconceptions and generalizations. And so really trying to dispel that for our friends who identify as fours is important. And so moving on, right, into our next section of how does race intersect with this number? One of this. And so uniquely for fours, how do the two connect with their personality and the experience of being a person of color or a Black person?
Yeah, I think it's especially interesting. Black people and feelings. It can be complicated. For a lot of us, we're not taught. There aren't conversations about emotions. We've covered this in some of our previous recordings, that we can kind of be conditioned to keep it moving. We don't have time to feel. As Black people, you have so much to face, so much to be aware of, that emotions are kind of at the very bottom of that list. And so that yields this this impact on what we've discussed as like emotional freedom. And so I think what this looks like for type fours and being a person of color who's a four, having this very deep connection with your emotions, perhaps in a culture or community or family of origin who didn't encourage or promote you being in touch with that, and verbalizing it, letting it exist outside of you. And so again, going back to shame, and how you can kind of, how again, types in this triad all struggle with shame, but for Black people and emotions, and so fours, how you can see how shame can kind of fester.
Yeah.
Right. You have all of these feelings and this deep capacity to feel, and high emotional intelligence at times in spaces and communities where that's not valued or doesn't feel valued, can be really impactful.
Yeah. I mean, and we can look at the individual level of that. You said that like sometimes in families and in communities that feelings and expressing our feelings aren't necessarily encouraged, but then also zooming out and then looking at the societal thing that it's not allowed. It's not, some Black people haven't been given the space to, a lot of times some of my work with clients is, especially my Black clients, around it's okay to feel. And then we'll ask these questions of what's your history in your family around feelings? What did it look like for people in your family to feel? And it's, it's like a blank stare. It's like, that didn't happen. And then we start to look at the context, right? And we start to hear about grandma and grandpa and mom and dad and the ways that they had to hustle, and the ways that they had to make things happen for their kids, and that they didn't get to express their feelings. And so then my client or our clients didn't get to see what it looked like to feel. And then if you are a 4, and you do have a connection to feelings, but I never saw it expressed and it almost was not allowed, then it's a big, again, that shame piece, or almost like a stuck place, that I've got all this emotional inner workings happening and I wasn't taught how to do this. I wasn't given the space to do this. Our society doesn't allow for me to do this as a person of color. And that is tough.
Yeah. On top of already having this wound that leads to a belief or message that I'm flawed, that something's wrong with, right? So all of that on top of what we talk about being, the core fear for 4s. Ooh.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then we put that into gender, right? And so then we think about our Black men and the messages that they have and the messages and the weight and the burden that they have to carry around masculinity. And again, if you're a 4 and you are a Black male, there's a lot of conflicting stuff happening there, that I feel very close to my emotions. I have a deep inner working of my emotions, and I live in a world where there are some really strong, loud messages around what it looks like to be a black man, and what's safe, and what's allowed and what's desired, right? And that's sometimes on us as women, right? We sometimes hold those messages up, unfortunately, for our brothers, and that's not okay. So all of that too.
So true and important. I'm glad we're giving some space for this dialect and to talk about this. I hope folks out there are feeling a lot of work to do culturally and in our community with normalizing that for us as a people, but especially for our Black men.
Right. We were talking earlier, even before, just the messages around crying, right? And so crying is a weakness, and that sometimes really is almost a cultural message, and trying to not show them that, and so having to hold those tears back sometimes, and where are the safe places to do that within families or in church or those sort of things, but that is something to walk through as well as a Black person. And then, we were talking about church. And so I know you've said this before, that quote that you grew up hearing a lot sometimes.
Not, thank God I don't look like what I've been through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite an image conscious notion. That's what I'm saying out loud. Like, why are you thanking God for that?
Right.
Because the reality is, you've been through it, and it was, you're saying that it was probably pretty impactful, pretty significant. And so, I wish we could give ourselves more permission for all of that to connect and be what it is, and us not have a worry or fear about, I think, being judged about it or feeling ashamed for it.
Yeah. And being able to feel it at the end of the day. And we know this as therapists, right? We don't have to, this is a whole nother therapy session, a whole nother podcast. But thinking about trauma, and thinking about what trauma is and how trauma is a lot of times when something gets kind of stuck in our bodies and we don't get to fully express the feelings that come along with whatever that event was. When I talk about my clients, we talk about too much, too little, too fast. When we think about trauma and not being able to go through the full cycle of that emotion, and that can be traumatic. And so when we think about things happening in our lives, things happening culturally, when we kind of have to hold it in and not look like what I've been through or not cry or not be weak, that becomes traumatic. And that's not good.
Yeah. This wasn't in our show notes, but I'm listening to you and I'm realizing that for a lot of my 4 clients, we talk about dissociating as a way to kind of cope with stuff. Dissociation is technically, I mean, it's a symptom of PTSD or experiencing something traumatic. But I guess I'm sharing just to say that we get into helpful ways for us to grow. But putting it here, so we're talking about, race and now trauma, which is just something it's relevant. If you're a Black person in this country at this point, trauma is relevant to you. And so keeping in mind dissociation and how, again, withdrawing, how we can kind of disconnect as a way to get through whatever the thing is, how we can check out, shut down to as a means to survive whatever the thing is. And so as a tip for 4s, going back to how 4s can withdraw, is when it feels safe, when it feels like it's those relationships where you feel validated, you feel like it's they see you and you feel connected, to challenge yourself to not withdraw, to really try to stay present and do things that feel grounding to you.
Yeah. I almost want, yes, to all of that. And I almost want maybe for you to kind of define dissociation a little bit for folks, just in case people might not know what that means. Because we talk about it a lot, but other people might be like, what's that word?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So the way I explain it is a spectrum. And so on one end of dissociating, you can hear people describe being triggered and blacking out, not remembering what they said or what happened. And on the other end of that spectrum, it can look like actually dissociative identity disorder, where folks have experienced, in most cases, really, really, really horrific traumas. And so the brain and all of its just magic and just amazement will split and create a disconnect between your mind and your body, because your brain is saying, oh crap, what you're going through right now, like, this is just too much. In order for us to make it through this, the only way to survive this is there's gonna have to be a disconnect, and you're just gonna have to physically be here, but not really mentally be here.
Yeah.
And so we can all experience dissociation in a response to our environment or what's going on. It can be anywhere on that spectrum. I think what's important to realize is that it is it's your nervous system, it's your body's way of keeping you alive. And so when we can learn how to be aware of it and work with it, that's what's in our best interest and really going to lead us to healing and growth versus working against it or getting frustrated or angry at those responses.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think dissociation, because you said it's a symptom of PTSD. It's a symptom of something else happening. It's our brain doing, again, I love that word, the magic, the protection that our brain is constantly trying to do to keep us safe, keep us alive. When we are experiencing dissociation, or we can think back in our lives at the times that we've maybe dissociated, recognizing that there was probably a big thing happening, something was going on, and there wasn't space for me to emotionally feel it. And so my brain said, we cannot emotionally do this right now because we're not going to be able to be safe or protected. And so we need to shut some stuff down. And so when we loop this back to fours, it's being able to say that, like, to get into those safe spaces where we can emotionally process. And that's why therapy is good. That's why all of these safe places where you can now unpack, okay, now that I'm safe, now that I'm in a safe relationship, how can I let myself feel the things that I couldn't feel in the moment and that I had to sort of separate myself from? And then again, when we look at the Black experience, and then again, when we think about like the history and the genealogy of what people were going through, again, people sometimes didn't have the space to go into the emotional part of what was happening. And that trickles down into messages and trickles down into stuckness, sometimes in emotional spaces. Yeah. So it's deep, right? Of course it is, because we're talking about our fours. So when we talk about, like, we keep saying safe spaces. So with fours, something to be aware of, because they can be a deep well of emotion. When we talk about how it intersects with race, is again, not getting stuck there. And not just, we talked earlier with the arrows and the wings. A big thing for fours is to be able to balance, to be able to get into the doing and the acting and the logic. And so how this intersects with race, being a four, is they can get stuck in the emotional place of the Black experience, whether it's the plight or the struggle or the grief. And they can just sort of live in that sadness. And that can be hard, obviously. And it can be heavy. And so for our four friends, the heaviness that they can carry, because they do connect to the emotions of what's happening. And that's a heavy burden to bear.
Yeah. Well said, Camille.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good point. Important point.
Yeah. And then one of the other things that we thought about with how race intersects with fours, we talked about fours having this aesthetic. This is a little bit of a lighter topic. They have this aesthetic and they have these identities, and they want to be individualistic, and they want to have their own brand and really kind of be seen as unique. And when we think about people of color, we sometimes don't get that privilege. It might be shamed or unsafe to be sort of the outlier or the quirky one or the really aesthetic one. Like, that might not be a safe or okay place to be. And we talked about, last episode with threes, like, they do a good job of chameleoning into what is acceptable. And where fours, their natural tendency is to be like, I don't want to be like that. I don't, we said, I don't want to have the playlist that everybody else has. I don't want to wear the same thing that everybody else wears. And so growing up, they might feel like, oh no, this part of myself that really wants to shine in a very unique way isn't allowed to, because of where they are in their communities and in their lives and, their schools or their workplace or things like that. So that's, whereas, for fours, we talk about that uniqueness. For Black fours and people of color fours, they might be like, oh, I don't really get to flex that muscle. I don't really get to do that. And that's something to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Flex it.
Yeah, please do. In your safe spaces, right? We don't want you to be unsafe, but in your places and with your communities and your friends and family that you feel like you can be your individual self, please, please, please do. But we also, context is important. And so we understand that, yeah, you might not be able to show up at the law office and whatever, but in your safe places. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I find or have learned, this came up with one of my clients who's a four. So those spaces, yes, in your relationships community, but for, prioritizing it, finding it within yourself. I know we're talking about not getting too stuck in your emotions, but I do think that can look different from what I'm suggesting here, and that's trusting more, and being more intentional about you, like, kind of highlighting and seeing yourself, not being so pressed about that validation coming from those relationships. And so what we learned and what we realized is, when this particular client was able to realize that that did need to happen for herself first, it happened more in the relationships, because she was more confident and able to show up more like herself. But with the preoccupation of trying to seek that from relationships first, sometimes that can continue to just perpetuate like a disconnect with yourself.
Yes. Yes, that makes so much sense.
Okay.
Let me make sure I've got it. Seeking your individuality and your uniqueness for yourself and not needing other people to validate it. That is the work of a 4. Like, that's it right there. Because when we're talking about connection, when we're talking about being seen as unique by others, and we always talk about the Enneagram, the thing that we're trying to do ends up becoming the trap. And so that's it right there, is that not trying to do it for other people, but doing it for myself, so that I can be okay and not get trapped with seeking and grasping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the cool thing is, when you end up doing that for yourself, there's a freedom. We talked about, emotional freedom. Like, there's a freedom that happens. And then going back to the relationships, and attraction, you end up attracting people who see that, and they want to be connected with that. And so then the validation that we all want, but talking about 4s, that you are seeking, it happens, but in a much more, authentic way, because you're giving yourself permission to be you're being yourself permission to be authentic. And so you're giving yourself permission to show up in that one.
Yes. Oh, that's good. Good work with that client.
Cool. Good. Yeah.
So the positive traits that this number brings to the Black experience, I'm excited to talk about this. So we're there, like Kim said earlier, we're therapists. So we have a relationship with feelings. We promote feelings around here. And coming from, that's growth for both of us, because we are, people 3s and 7s don't usually love feelings, but we have learned to love them because of our profession. And 4s, like we said earlier, really great at feelings. I talked about that, that 4 friend was the one that held that heartbreak so well, because, right, we have to remember that there is a value to sadness. And this is usually a mind-blowing concept when I talk about it with certain clients. It is a mind-blowing concept to myself, but that, yes, sadness is good, and that sadness can teach us things, and sadness can unlock really beautiful parts of the human experience, because this is our therapy spiel, right? When we can experience the lows and we can experience our sadness and our hard emotions, it allows us to swing on the other side of the spectrum to be able to experience our moments of joy and love and contentment and all of those things. And we can't have the really, really high highs if we don't understand and hold and sit with the places of hard parts. And so I'm going to give another plug, another shout out. I use the movie Inside Out all the time with my clients. So definitely watch that. 4s, I think you will feel very seen and loved in that movie, because the character that plays sadness ends up being like the star of the show. And really, we get to see how important sadness is in our life and how it highlights moments of connection. And we were talking a little bit about earlier, the Black church, right? And some of the sentences there, if I don't look like what I've been through. But then I also think about, with my church earlier last year. So in 2020, one of my favorite things that my church did was we had a lament service. And we lamented. And we lamented for all the lives that were lost, and all the things that were going on in the world around race relations. But being able to hold that as well, and being able to lean into sadness and grief, because it's important, and there's a value to it. And I'm still working through 2020. I think most of us are, even though we're in 2021 and we're almost out of 2021, I'm still working through it. And what I keep going back to as I'm working through 2020 and my processing my feelings is that there is and was a lot of sadness, and being able to sit with that, in a way that's helpful, in a way that's, it just allows me to then be thankful and allows me to be grateful, allows me to then hope. And so those are all of those really nice emotions, but I can't get there if I don't lament as well.
Yeah. You remember we had that class, and there was the analogy of the bow and arrow and the pulling back and the
Yes.
letting go. And I was like,
Yes.
I'm not, it's not clicking for me.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I think so.
There was something about that particular analogy, the way it was explained at the time that it was explained, it really wasn't clicking for me. And I think I got it a little bit, but this is really, as we're talking about, this is what you're saying right now is really helping me to get it, in order to experience the positive, and I'm using quotes, emotion. So, joy, for example, in order for us to be able to be propelled into experiencing that, we have to be able to also experience the quote, bad or sad emotions. Like you can't cut one off and expect that you can experience the other. And so this is all about being able to be collapsible. We talk about that in therapy a lot. Being able to experience those emotions that can make us feel like we want literally like we need to collapse or curl up in a fetal position so that we can then expand.
I love that. That's really cool. I love that idea of collapsible. But yes, yeah. And so fours, they remind us that we need to allow for those hard emotions, allow for those emotions that we find uncomfortable, because they're going to help us be able to then expand. So that's really neat. And so again, our fours just really embody that and remind us of that. And so we thank them for that. Because it's important. And then, looping back to what we were talking about with the trauma, like we have to be able to feel what happened to be able to heal from it. And if we don't feel it, we can't heal. And so, that might mean that we have to feel the sadness or the grief or all the things that are hard for us to feel sometimes.
Is that Lauryn Hill? Or is that Jay-Z? Can't heal what you don't reveal. I think it's Jay-Z. Can't heal what you don't reveal.
But Lauryn Hill has something about feeling and healing. When you just said that, you can't. Okay, we'll think about this.
I'm giving it a Google over here. Is it my turn? Do I need to? Am I talking?
No, I can. Right. So, as you look that up, the creative minds piece. So what they bring to the Black experience, definitely is their creativity. That is a very special thing about fours, is their connection with creativity, whether it's music, art, drawing, whatever, dance. They have a really beautiful connection to creativity. And you know what? That's a lesson, because here we are talking about sadness. Here we are talking about the hard emotions. And then we also, right next to it, is fours are really creative. And so again, another plug for our hard emotions is that our hard emotions and our difficult emotions are the ones that tap us into creativity. And so being able to allow that to shine through. So they bring creativity to the Black experience a lot of times in the way that they can create, which is beautiful.
Yes. I didn't find it.
You didn't find it? Okay.
Creative, real, deep. We've covered that with fours. Fours are the fours are our people who really, really, they value authenticity and just really have an appreciation for depth. Fours, I think of fours as like they're the connection plug. I mean, I know a plug is a connection, but fours are just like if you really just want to like sit down and just feel. Do you know what that feels like, to just feel like somebody is just like there with you and they see you and they feel you and you're just connect. Like if you are just really feeling like you're in need of that, find you a four and tell that four that that's what you're in need of, and they're going to be all about it. Fours love to be connected, and it's just something that in a world, in a time where what it means to be connected is so I don't even know the word to describe it.
Rare.
Hard is good. In some ways there's like too much connection and it's the wrong type of connection.
Superficial connection.
Right. And then that, leads to this perpetual disconnection. So fours bring us that, if you want to feel connected because it's something that's so important for them, they bring us that. So thanks for that, fours.
I would say too, again, I'm still just thinking about this value of sadness. And so the value of those deep emotions is that, and I always say this to clients when we talk about our feelings around our hard emotions, I have people list out what are their beliefs around hard emotions. And usually they're the negative ones, right? It's weakness, it's not okay, all those kind of things. But then we work on how can we change some of those limiting beliefs around it. And one of the things that we get to with sadness is that sadness is one of our biggest connectors. And we see that, right? We see that the example I give is when I'm watching a movie and something sad happens, I feel it. I tear up too. I don't know those people. Those aren't even real people. They're fictional, but I'm crying too, because it is a connector to empathize with people. And so again, like that value of sadness, that value of depth is that it is a connection piece. And so fours, again, they're really good at connection because they allow for their deep feelings and they allow for sadness to be okay and just be there. And it's because it's a reality.
Yeah. I love that, Camille. Crying, we've said this a few times. I mean, it comes up a lot for me and most of my clients being Black women, and just like we've said, our relationship with emotions and allowing for there to be this release. And so with that, I've tried to like really, try to have my resources for when this comes up, to share with clients to help them with how they view specifically crying. And in one of my resources, it's an article that did some research on crying, which is not a lot of, believe it or not. But you mentioned, how sadness and connection in this article, it talks about how crying, research suggests that that's one of the reasons for it, is so that the people who see you can see that you're perhaps in need of some connection because of the tears. It's a very human way to try to connect with other humans. Just crying, tears.
I love that. Yes. We'll link that article for us. But then, I remember also reading an article about tears. Just be like the alchemy of tears. Like, so have you read this one too? That like the makeup of tears is different than other fluids in our body, and that there is a rejuvenating aspect to the makeup of tears. And how gorgeous, how gorgeous that it is okay. It's allowed. This is one of my favorite things there's a lot of things I love about being a therapist. But one of my favorite things about being a therapist is something that I do. I think you probably do it too. I have tissues in my office. But I do not hand my clients tissues when they are crying. And because I deeply believe that I don't want them to feel like they have to clean up or that they are too messy or that they are bad. So when my clients are crying, I don't hand them anything. I am connected to them, and I am with them. The tissues are available if they want them. But I'm not sending any message that this needs to stop. or that you need to clean up, or that this is bad. And so even in the way, and we, again, both of us just love what we get to do as therapists. And so even in that hour, just allowing our clients to have a space where I don't care if you cry, like it's fine. You're not bothering me. Not too much for me. You're not weak. You are just showing me something beautiful, and I get to connect to you. And it is a joy and an honor.
You sound like a dope therapist, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. We try. We both try.
We do.
So fours, thank you for being so beautiful, like images and pictures of the value of sadness, the value of that you show us that it is important to feel. It is important because it brings us creativity. It brings us depth. It brings us connection. And those are things that, that are so needed in our world. And when we think about the Black experience, right? Like we are also a people that love to dance and sing and create. And we do all those things because there is a sense of sadness sometimes, and we have to allow that so that we can swing to the other side and be the really dope, beautiful, joyful, hopeful people that we are. And so we got to be on both sides of that spectrum. And I think as Black, we probably really actually do that a lot more naturally than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Helpful ways to grow.
Yes. So, we just gave a really big like shout out for feelings, and we just like really gassed up how important it is to feel. But a way for fours to grow is to sometimes come out of your feelings at times.
Yeah.
Because you hold it so well. Like we said earlier, you guys can kind of get stuck in that place. And so for fours, it would be important for y'all to step back from it sometimes. You are our guides in this world around that, and you are the ones that embody it so well, but you guys have to come up for air. And so being able to, in the therapy world, there's a theoretical model called DBT, and one of their things that they talk about is called wise mind. And wise mind is being able to, there's emotional mind and then there's wise mind. And so wise mind is sort of that part and mind that can step back and look at the logic, can look at the reality of the situation. So an example of wise mind might be, so let's say we're talking about me and Kim. I might, if Kim gave me a funny look, right, I might, in emotional mind, be like, Kim hates me. Kim doesn't like me. Kim's mad at me. She doesn't want to do this podcast with me anymore. That might be my emotional mind. My wise mind is going to say she didn't give me a dirty look. She just like was rubbing her nose, and it's okay. And it was just one time, and Kim doesn't give me looks all the time. This was just this one incident. So being able to use my wise mind in conjunction with my emotional mind, we don't want to shut either one off, or we don't want to rely on one too much. We want to have a balance. And so being able to, for fours, tap into that wise mind stuff, where you can kind of step back and look at the logic of it. And then again, you've got that, you guys have that great tie to the one. So you go to one in growth. And so I love working with my four clients about getting there. And so we talked about ones too, episode 3, a lot of episodes ago, and talked about with ones, we talked about that they are really good at logic, and they are really good at kind of disconnecting from their feelings a little bit. And so for fours, getting to a place where you can balance your depth of emotion, but then also applying the logic to it. And you can do that by leaning into that one arrow. Because it's helpful to not get stuck there, not get down in that place. And then, a negative of getting stuck in our emotions is that dissociation stuff that Kim was talking about, kind of getting flooded.
Yep. Well said. Absolutely. I mean, even as therapists, so much, we're trying to encourage our clients to do things to help them with opening up more emotionally. It's not uncommon for me to suggest that, like for some of my 4 clients who are really stuck in their emotions, I'm like, don't journal.
Yep.
Don't like, for now, go for a walk. So doing something to get you in your body. So one is a gut triad. That's a body type. So like Camille said, leaning into that energy more just to bring about more balance.
I think sometimes there was something I don't think we said this yet. We did. We talked about bringing sense to the emotions. So sometimes with my with my 4 clients, I loved how you said, don't journal. Sometimes I will talk to my 4 clients about, okay, does that make sense? Like, how do we put logic onto that? And sometimes having community around you to check you, to say like, that doesn't make sense, or to have a therapist that can say that doesn't make sense. That is emotional. And that's okay, but let's put the logic on top of it.
Yep. I would say, so fours, keeping in mind, we talked about so much, we said over and over, fours are so deep. Fours are deep. Y'all are so, we love fours. You got this depth. And so recognizing that everyone will not be able to always match your depth, and that's okay. So again, that connection is so important for fours. And so you have, fours who are attempting to connect on a really deep level, and is with someone who's just not there, who doesn't have that capacity for that, for fours to know that that's okay. And again, your depth, it's a gift. Everybody's not that deep. So don't take it too personal. Don't take that as a rejection. To just know and be okay with this notion that, everyone won't have that same capacity for depth as you. And so fours, a lot of times I end up talking about this with some of my clients. It may end up looking like you don't have 25, 30 friends that you're really, really close with. You might just have a few that, really, really get you, see you, and that you really, really get and see. And so just, again, with that weakness of envy, fours can slip into comparison. And so, you may be looking on social media or whatever, and it looks like everybody else is billions and billions of friends. And again, that triggering that wound that something's wrong with you. No, it's not that. It's not that. You deep, and that's a gift, and everybody can't get with that, and that's okay. So be thankful and appreciate the folks you have.
Yes. When we also with fours, routine is important, because when we are in our feelings, sometimes like the wind will take you wherever. And so being able to still have routine on top of that of, okay, I do need to get up. I need to do this. These are the tasks I have to do. These are the phone calls I have to make. This is how I'm going to move my body for today. I'm having routine so that the feelings don't run the show when we're trying to get some stuff done. Because again, we can just kind of get swept up in it of whatever we're feeling for that moment. And then some stuff can kind of fall by the wayside. So really having a good routine, some non-negotiables sometimes is what I'll talk about with clients. Like, what are the things that need to get done regardless of how I feel? And that might be things like, I need to take my medicine, or I need to move my body, or I need to get outside, or I need to make my bed. Those little things that are your non-negotiables that, even if I'm feeling sad, even if I'm feeling anxious, even if I'm feeling whatever, I still need to get those things done.
And staying present or grounded. That's one we've mentioned already. And we were talking about dissociating. So to counter tendency to, again, get lost in or really swept away by the feelings and emotions. It's helpful and necessary for fours to have resources for getting grounded and staying present. You really need to. And I think with that, it's specifically talking to everybody, talking about fours and 2 4s. There can be kind of a idealization that comes along with this, right? With what it looks like to get present and get grounded. And so I would say, be careful about that. Don't get too caught up in what that's supposed to look like. Giving yourself permission to stay open and curious, and trusting that as you are getting to know yourself and accepting yourself more, that clarity about what it means to be present and grounded, you'll learn that as well. So, you have your places to start, but I find that when I talk about getting grounded with clients, what that means and how to do it can get in the way of learning what that means and how to do it for you as an individual.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it's probably a function of our society, is we want like a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and this is how I do it. And this one size fits all. And that's not all, but that's not true. And so we have to exploration, curiosity. Those are the words that we want to kind of bring into our lives. And even when, you're so right. When we think grounded means this one thing, and this is the one technique that I'm supposed to do to feel grounded. And when I even think about that for myself, I have multiple like tools in my toolbox, if you will, if very fair. To say, okay, today, this is what it means to be grounded. And right now, this is what it means to be grounded. And the way that I do that is by staying in touch with my body, and knowing, what does my body need right now? Does my body need to have both feet on the floor? Does my body need to do a body scan? Do I need a weighted blanket? Do I need to notice the colors around me? There's lots of ways. Do I need to have a conversation with a friend? Do I need to touch something fuzzy? Like, what are the ways I can be grounded? It's going to be multiple things in different seasons. And so being curious around that. Yeah. And then the last thing that we have of helpful ways for us to grow is focusing on what's positive, and what you're grateful for versus what's missing. And so really having, probably when you think about routine, or you think about staying present and grounded, having a really great practice of gratitude. I always talk about that gratitude is a practice. So that means that we want to actually, like, what's one thing that I can be grateful for today? What are 5 things I can be grateful for today? Having that be a regular practice in our lives so that we can start to expand the language of gratitude, as opposed to looking at what's missing within ourselves or within our day or within our relationships, really looking at what's positive. And sinking into that. And that could be a way to stay grounded.
Yeah. I think that's that on that.
That's that on that. I really enjoyed this episode. I feel like blessed, or I feel like I got something from this episode of just that reminder of the value of sadness, and that is an okay thing. And again, just because our 4s do it so beautifully in the ways that it connects to other things, that was really helpful for me to even be reminded of. Yeah.
Look at us.
Look at us.
We'll do it again next time.
We will. And so we will jump into 5s next time, which is our head triad. But we will see you guys on the next episode.
Yes, we'll see you there. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.